Hello you guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing my December wrap up, which I'm so excited to because if you were here for last month's wrap up, you know that I kind of had a rough go around. I read a lot of books, but I didn't really like a lot of the books that I read. This month is kind of the opposite. I didn't really read a ton, but the ones that I did read, I really enjoyed. I think I read about 7 books. We have 4 romance and 3 fantasy, which I think this was a pretty light reading month for me because I was honestly in the middle of a slump at like kind of the beginning of the month, and I didn't finish my first book until December 11th. So we kind of got a late start on the month. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the books I read, so let's hop into it. The first one I read was on my Kindle. It is Behind the Net in the Vancouver Storm series, and last month I had read, I want to say, the second book, and so I kind of like worked my way backwards and read the first book this month, and we're following Jamie and Pippa. Jamie's a professional hockey player, and then Pippa becomes his assistant, and they actually went to high school together, so they've kind of like known of each other, but that's the first time they'd seen each other in like a bunch of years. And it kind of gave me very much like insta love vibes because as soon as they see each other for the first time, they're kind of like obsessed with each other right off the bat. This one I only rated 2 stars because I feel like it was pretty easy to get through, but I just didn't really buy into like the love story really. This book was Grumpy Sunshine, but I feel like Jamie, which is our main male character, I feel like he was just like a little bit too grumpy to where I just didn't really feel like he cared about the main character Pippa. It was an easy enough book to get through after my slump, like it was easy enough to finish, so 2 stars wasn't terrible, especially where I was at the time. Next I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and I actually have Beg, Borrow, or Steal, and I really enjoyed that book, so I wanted to get the rest of the series. I have a thing where I just read series out of order, so I know this is the first book, but I just kind of like worked my way backwards. And this one I gave a 1 star. I was so sad because I loved Beg, Borrow, or Steal, but this one I just felt like it was so slow. I like a slow burn, but this one I just felt like there really was nothing happening for the majority of the book. Amelia is a famous singer, and then Noah's a baker, and she kind of just gets fed up of like her agent and all of the life that she lives with, like her celebrity life. She really likes the Audrey Hepburn movie Roman Holiday, so she just types in Rome, and Rome, Kentucky is the first thing that pops up on her maps. So she goes there and ends up breaking down in Noah's yard, and or like in front of his yard, and so he comes out and tries to help her. She's really not into it at first, and then there's nowhere that she can stay, so she ends up staying with him. I feel like more should be happening, but there just really wasn't. I just feel like I wasn't really connected to the characters because it was moving so slow. Just both seemed a little bit bland to me, so I didn't really love this one. I gave it a 1 star. It was honestly very painful to finish and took me quite a while to finish it, even though it's like a tiny book, but alas, we moved on from there. Next I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I feel like I should have read this forever ago because I know everybody talks about this book. This one I rated 3 stars because I was enjoying it so much. I thought it was so cute until we got to the part where you learn like why. First off, let me go over the plot. Okay, we have Macy and then we have Elliot, and they basically are each other's like first loves all throughout their childhood, and then I think Macy ends up moving away. They end up running into each other at a coffee shop and then talking from there, but she's already engaged to someone else. It's kind of like a past present timeline where you're learning about like their past, but then where they are now, where she's engaged to someone else, but like they're still kind of talking, and you can tell that the feelings are still there, but something like really painful happened between them. And I thought it was so cute, and I was so on board up until you find out why they broke up, and then after that I just like couldn't really get down with the reasoning. Like I just felt like Macy forgave Elliot too easily, I guess. I don't know, it's just something I probably don't think I would have forgiven as easy as she did, so it made it really hard to like root for them at the end of the book. Yeah, this one, it was 3 stars because I really did enjoy it and it really was cute. I just couldn't give it like 4 or 5 stars because I didn't really love the reason why they broke up. I honestly think they should have probably stayed broken up, but that's just me. This is where my reading really picked up and I really started to love this reading month. Next I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which if you do not know what this book is, I'm sure you do because it's been everywhere. But this is actually my first fantasy book that I read and I've been obsessed with it. So we're following Kai and Payton. Kai is the Prince of Ilia, so his dad is the King of Ilia. And then Payton lives in the slums of Ilia, and she's basically homeless. She's a thief, so she has to steal like food and money to survive. And she lives in like this little trash fort with her best friend Adina. And so they come from very different backgrounds. he has powers, so he's an elite, and she does not have powers. She's an ordinary, and the king hates ordinaries. He's kind of trying to banish them from his kingdom, and so Kai is the enforcer of the king, so he basically just like goes on missions for the king, and a lot of his missions include like killing or banishing ordinaries. So they're kind of enemies like from the start. They're destined to be enemies because of that. But there's one day where Kai is in the slums and Peyton tries to steal from him, and I think she does it successfully, which kind of like creates this infatuation with her from Kai because he's used to obviously like being super ruthless and having powers and not really used to being like conquered. So the fact that she could steal from him just basically makes him obsessed with her. And so they already kind of have that background going into it, but the king ends up putting on these trials, which is basically kind of like in the Hunger Games where they're all just like fighting to the death for everybody's entertainment. It's kind of what the trials are essentially. Kai and Peyton both get entered into the trials, so they're supposed to be competing against each other, but as they're like training and doing all these things before the trials, you can kind of see they have like a growing relationship throughout that. But again, it's still like enemies to lovers essentially. So they still hate each other. When they're in the trials, they end up working together to kind of conquer them. And you're basically just following Kai's obsession with her because it starts out as like an infatuation just because she stole from him, and then it really just blossoms into like this love that he has for her. It is just beautiful. Like everyone I've talked to, Kai is like their favorite book boyfriend, and I very much agree. He's so sweet. The pining he has for her, like I've never seen yearning like from this man. So if you're into that, you're gonna love Powerless. Last month, if you guys watched my November wrap up, I read The Right Move in the Windy City series. Well, Play Along is my absolute favorite book, and it's also in the same series. So since I reread that one, I just decided I had to reread this one. And you can tell this book has been very well loved, very well annotated. I'm obsessed with this book. It's literally like a 6-star book to me. But if you for some reason have not read any of the Windy City series books, I'll tell you what this one is about. So we have Kennedy and we have Isaiah. Isaiah is a professional baseball player, and then Kennedy, I'm pretty sure she's their team's athletic trainer. It starts out 3 years prior to like when the rest of the book takes place. And basically Kennedy had just gotten the job as, she was supposed to be getting it, I'm pretty sure, as the team like lead doctor. But whenever she goes and meets the person who's hiring her, he's like super sexist and doesn't want her to get the job because she's a girl. So he basically tells her that the best he can do is just give her like an athletic training job. So they're having this conversation in the women's locker room. And then meanwhile, while this is happening, Isaiah's also hiding in the women's locker room because it's the date of his mom's death, like years prior to this. And so every year on that date, he'll go to the women's locker room because it's basically the only place where he can be alone and just kind of sit in his thoughts. So they're both like in there at the same time, and after the person who Kennedy's talking to leaves, she's kind of just like talking to herself and frustrated about the situation, and then Isaiah comes out and tries to comfort her. So that's kind of how they meet. It's like a very weird meet cute, I guess, but anyways, they immediately start this like connection because they both obviously comforted each other in this moment. Basically, they just kind of strike up like a close relationship from this moment on, but she's engaged to someone else. Isaiah really likes her from then on, but she is engaged, so he's not really like trying to do anything. And then the next chapter of the book where it like really starts is he's in Vegas on a team bonding trip, and then she's in Vegas for a bachelorette party, and they run into each other. He invites her to go out with him just to have a drink, and she's trying to escape the bachelorette party, so she goes with him. They both get blackout drunk and end up getting married, which this is again like the first 2 chapters of the book, so it's not really a spoiler because it's literally where the rest of the book starts. But yeah, they basically end up getting married. They wake up the next day and are like, what did we do? Like, this is crazy. And so Kennedy's terrified of losing her job because whenever she first got hired, she was told that if she had any relationship with the players or the coaches or anything, that she'd be fired. So she's really scared that she's going to lose her job. And since Isaiah's kind of like pined after her and had this thing for her over the years, he wants to help her out and not have her get fired. So they kind of strike up this deal where they'll stay married until the end of the season just to keep her job, and then from there on she'll try to go somewhere else. Kind of just following them over the course of the season where Isaiah's trying to get her to fall in love with him, like genuinely. She's just not really into it. She's trying to keep it like separated and not fall for him so that she could just move on and get divorced and basically get her dream job at the end of the season. So you're just following them. And again, this is another book where like the pining is just insane. Like, I've never met someone like Isaiah or Kai. They're kind of the same in my opinion, where they're just like literally and utterly obsessed with the girl, which is personally my favorite thing to read about. So if you really like yearning, pining, the guy who's obsessed with the girl, this is your book. Same thing with Powerless. So I love this one. 6-star read. It's literally my favorite book of all time. After Play Along, I went back to the Powerless series and read their little second novella. So Powerless is the first book, and then this one's kind of like, if you look at it on Goodreads, it's like 1.5 of the series because it's technically supposed to be read like alongside or after you finish Powerless, but before the next book in the series. So I picked this one up, which the sprayed edges on this thing are so pretty. I don't know if my camera's focusing, so you probably can't see, but this one is actually following Adina, which is Peyton's best friend. And it's kind of like alongside while Peyton's in the trials. So Adina's living in their little like trash fort in the slums by herself. And because Peyton's not there to like steal food and money for her, she kind of has to learn how to do those things for herself, and she's not very good at it. So one day she tries to steal food and gets caught by an Imperial, which an Imperial's kind of just like, I feel like a guard for like the castle and the kingdom. Like basically they just follow the king's orders. So she's getting chased one day by this Imperial, and some random guy basically saves her, like picks her up and takes her out of the way. And he strikes up a deal with her because he knows that her best friend Peyton is in the trials, and then he has someone in his life who he's really close to is also in the trials. So he basically goes to Adina and knows that she makes clothes and tells her that if she makes him an Imperial costume or uniform, whatever it's called, then they should both sneak into the castle, and he can pose as an Imperial and like easily get into the castle, and she can see Peyton, and then he can see the person that's really important to him. So they kind of strike up this deal. They spend some time together while she's making this uniform for him, and in the meantime she stays with him to kind of get away from like the little trash fort in the slums, and they end up forming this really big connection. And I feel like that's really all I can say without like spoiling it, but basically it kind of leads you into like the very end of how Powerless ended. So definitely read Powerless before you read this, or kind of like gives away a spoiler. But that's all I'll tell you. If you're really interested in it, you need to read it. Next one, I moved on to Reckless, which is the second book in the series. And I've never like talked about books in a series before where like if you talk about the second book, it will give away stuff that happened. So I'm not really going to tell you what this one is about, but this one I rated 5 stars. I think it's honestly better in my opinion than Powerless. And just know that like if you love Kai in Powerless, you're going to love him even more in Reckless. So I definitely recommend reading that. I'm not really going to say too much more, but just know that I rated it 5 stars and I'm obsessed, and I think you should read it. So that is everything I read this month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll have my Goodreads down in the description if you want to kind of see what I'm up to and what books I'm reading. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had fun hanging out with you, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!